help you develop delight. And in this corner are partners that you may meet early. They're very nice, they're enjoyable, they're fun to be with. You're not going to drive a lot of revenue and profit through them, and they're actually not smart enough to help you take the product to the next generation. But they're nice people and they're helpful, so that's why we call them playmate partners. I mean, they're nice. They're fun to be with, but don't spend too much time. As nice as it is to spend time with playmate partners, you should be here, here, and here. So there are times you're going to have to say, I'm sorry, I can't send our technical people to see you, whatever. The revenue partners are often pretty obnoxious, I guess I would say. Walmart is a good example of a revenue partner for most product categories. They're tough, they negotiate on price, but boy, if you get into Walmart, you're going to sell a lot of volume, but they're going to really squeeze you on profit margins. But if you can get your product into Walmart, you do it, right? So you will have Walmarts in your category. The idea is, and the revenue partner doesn't want to take a lot of risks. They really don't want to screw around with helping you to develop the next generation of your products. It's like when you know it's good, when you know it's got a good brand value and all of that, bring it to me and we'll sell it in large quantities at a discount price and life will be good. You take the profits from this and you use them to fund the work that you do in next generation product development with these very smart partners who don't drive a lot of revenue and profit but can help you continuously innovate. An example of a company that did that, this original matrix I developed with a company called Applied Materials back in 1989. And Applied is the world's largest semiconductor equipment manufacturer. So they make the machines that make the chips that we have in all of our devices. They were getting into trouble because they did not have reliability in the fab. So their machines tended to break down and they didn't get a very good yield. So that what percent of the wafer do you actually get chips and what's your throughput time and what is your utilization and all that. And their competitors were basically laughing at them and saying, oh, you don't want to buy Applied Materials because they've got problems with reliability. So they looked and they realized that Intel, which at that point was not a very large semiconductor company, was really good when it came to reliability in manufacturing the process and so on. And Applied said, look, will you work with us? You've got to teach us to be more reliable. We've always been able to be the technology leader. We can get first results on a wafer, is what you call it, when you can go to the next wafer size and you can actually make chips out of it. And they worked with Intel and they solved the manufacturing reliability problem, And Intel went in the process from being what we'll call a delight partner to a strategic partner. Because as Intel was more successful, it grew and it became a larger share of Applied's business, and it remains one of their strategic partners today. In fact, the chief executive officer for Applied, I think the current one, or if not one back, was actually an Intel employee. So that's the kind of thing that can happen. Now, how many strategic partners do you think you should have? I asked Steve Ballmer, who at the time was the #2 person at Microsoft, in 1994, Steve, how many strategic partners does Microsoft have? Spend 30 seconds buzzing and then tell me what number Steve gave me. So how many strategic partners did Microsoft have in 1994? They were over $1 billion in revenues. They're a big company, okay? You're looking at me like, okay, you can guess. You don't have to talk about it. Who's got a guess? What do you think? What's the number? 0, okay, interesting. By the way, I was out at Católica's, this other university we won't talk about tonight, and I got a lot of zeros from the MBAs there. Okay, 0. Anybody go higher than 0? Intel. Only Intel, 1? IBM. At that point, unfortunately not. At that point, IBM had become the enemy because they tried to introduce a new operating system. This was, yeah, because IBM in '84 went from strategic partner to enemy. But no, it was a revenue partner. It wasn't an enemy, it was a revenue partner. You say 1 only, Intel? Anybody go more than 1? Come on. Is that 5? Or is that 25, 23, or what is it? Or is that 2 different people? 2 and 3? Okay, anybody go above 3? Okay, 3 is the highest number. The answer is 5. 5, and you guys are going, he was lying. No, he wasn't, he was dead serious and said, who are they? And he said, Intel, obviously. And then there are hardware manufacturers that are doing really interesting things that are helping us to figure out new ways to really make the operating system in Microsoft Office better. And those are HP, Dell, Toshiba, and Sony. And they're far better than the other hardware manufacturers, and we really love working with them, and they're our strategic partners. And I said, well, but what about Fujitsu, and what about, IBM I understood, but what about all these other, what about Compaq? And they said, look, Steve said, look, we don't have the bandwidth to really do a partnership right, to where it's really strategic. It takes so much of your engineering talent, so much of your senior sales talent, and so much of your senior executive talent and time that we don't know how to manage more than 5. And so I think the lesson to us in this is, as a young company, as a new startup, you probably can't handle 5, but make it more than 1. I know this for sure through other work that I've done. If you have only one strategic partner, you become their captive, particularly if they're larger and so on. If you have 2, you can actually use them to keep each other honest. And the 3 is not necessarily better than 2, so at least 2, and I'd say no more than 3 or 4 until you get to be Microsoft size, and then maybe 5. Okay? This is a tool that you use when you sit down with your partners to understand what the partner's going to give and what they're going to get. The basic way that you use this is you work with your team and you say, okay, partner so-and-so, so if we were partnering with somebody to do the flying car, let's imagine that we were going to go in to an aircraft manufacturer or a helicopter manufacturer, because we don't know how to make flying things. So they're going to provide the technology that elevates vehicles, and they're going to provide money because they're bigger than we are. They're going to provide some talent in terms of the engineering to make flying cars. They're going to provide probably relationships with the FAA and that's an American government agency that certifies that things are okay to fly. They have a reputation, right? So they're going to offer that. And they do have critical capabilities that you need if your car's going to fly. You're going to have to give them something for that. And it may be that you have people on the team who really understand the automotive business or have connections in some sort of way, or you've gotten the government of Chile to agree that Santiago will be the first place on earth that has flying cars as part of the solution to the traffic problem, right? Whatever it is, you're going to offer them something that has them go, I like you people. You know, you're a very interesting team, and flying cars would solve a lot of problems. And if we were able to be, you know, the brand on that thing when it first goes up, it helps in lots of ways. It's a way for us to kind of diversify our interest, because there are not that many people buying helicopters. More these days with all the terrorism going on, but after all, people are not going to buy helicopters to avoid traffic, but they might buy a flying car, right? And so you think about and you identify, what will the partner get from you? What will the partner give to the relationship? 2 key things that are really important. You may understand in the very first meeting that the partner doesn't trust you and thinks you're a jerk. You immediately get somebody else on your team to handle the relationship. Do not let your ego get involved. Not everybody likes everybody, and it's really pretty stupid for you to try to convince the partner who doesn't trust you that he's an idiot and he really should, that you're right and he's incorrect in his gut. If you've read the book Click is a wonderful book. We make decisions about people in a heartbeat, in a nanosecond just about, and trying to run against that is not a very smart idea. So you want to understand the chemistry of the key people. If you're not the right person to lead the partnership, get somebody who can. If you are the right person, make sure you're bringing your other people on the team into conversation with their counterparts so that you've got more than one relationship holding the partnership together. It's really important to have multiple people who really trust each other when you do these things. You think about the culture of their company and how is it different from yours. The helicopter company's going to have a culture, and if you want to be like them, fine. But if you want to be different, then you have to think about how you're going to be different, and so on and so on. In addition, I'm astonished at how few entrepreneurs actually learn about the publicly traded companies that they're going in to partner with. In the United States, there's something called the 10K, which is a report that goes out every year required by law, in which you learn a lot about who's on the board of directors, what the strategy is, what's going on in the company. And sometimes they have an annual report, sometimes it's at the front of the 10K. It's the president's letter. If you read that for the past 3 or 4 years, you're going to see how the strategy has started to change, what the issues are for the senior leadership of that company. And you should never, never call on a partner who has those sorts of documents available without having read them and understood them. Okay? So do your homework so that you realize what that organization is facing so that you can do a really good job in working with them. Now, Do you bring it in all filled out and say, hi, here's what we think. What do you think? No. You bring in a blank sheet. I mean, you bring in this, not filled in. And if it's a man, you sit shoulder to shoulder, not face to face. And you know, we have this in front of us, and I say, we really would like to be in a partnership with you, and we'd like to understand what you'd like to get from us and what you think your organization would like to bring to the partnership. Let's look at this and let's discuss. And so the guys will work. People take up pens and pencils, and it's a very animated discussion, but they're not sitting face to face. We don't know why this is true, but guys don't like sitting face to face. It's too confrontational. If you're a female dealing with a female, we're pretty sure that you ought to be going face to face. And if you're a man who the female will trust, you may be able to go eye to eye. It all depends. So think about how you're actually doing this. Because small choices in the way that you do something like that help to build chemistry. So it's not just about the sheet of paper. It's the tone of voice. It's the pose you strike. You're trying to earn trust from strangers. And there are things that you can learn. That, by the way, this particular thing I learned from Deborah Tannen. She wrote a book, Talking from 9 to 5, which is a fantastic book about gender differences in the way that people communicate in business. Competition. How many of you have, well, I'll slow down. You have two kinds of markets. You have commodity markets, fierce competition. In those markets, the big beats the small. And then you have what the Blue Ocean strategy authors call blue oceans. In that case, the fast beat the slow. So you're either going to have to play the sumo wrestler game or you're going to be the roadrunner. But most entrepreneurs have to learn how to play both games. Because eventually, even a blue ocean, we'll talk about what that means in a minute, turns red, the sharks come in. So there is a fantastic book called Blue Ocean Strategy. Who's read it? Who's bought it and hasn't read it yet? No, you're not. So there are a bunch of you who bought it and haven't read it. Okay. That would be called credenza wear. You put it on your credenza to make it look like you're learning, but in fact, you haven't got time to read it. The red ocean is basically, back. The metaphor is the red ocean has sharks in it, and they'll kill each other and every other living thing trying to get fed. A blue ocean is a patch of ocean without sharks. When you create the flying car, the sharks can't follow, at least for a while. That's the idea. I'm not going to spend time on this, okay, because it's too small to read, and I've talked to my authors about increasing the font, and they refuse to, so I'm just going to let it go. But what are the differences in the two kinds of competitive strategy? In the red ocean, you've just got to be better in an existing game, and we're going to talk about the kinds of better in a minute. There will be price competition. The market's not growing. You're just trying to figure out who do you steal share from. And the way that you do innovate is by being either better or faster or cheaper or safer or some combination of those four. And if you're going to increase share, somebody's going to lose share. So you have to be the best in an existing game. Think about football. How many of you watched the match the other night? Oh, come on. How many of you watched the football match the other night? Boy, the rest of you. I thought that Chile was, no? Football crazy? No, I don't know. Well, the people that I talked to about it said, well, we're going to get our butt kicked. Why should we? Why should we watch? All right. Anyway, the game changer, you're really changing the game. No direct competition. Think about the flying car. You're either disrupting that existing market or you're creating a new one. You can innovate by complementing what other partners are doing. And you're turning people who are not consuming or purchasing in the category to people who are doing it. Or you're finding brand new kinds of consumers. So your challenge is to invent the new game. So this is what we call the outperformer. It's like the Energizer Bunny, just keeps going and going and going and going. And we're not going to do this exercise, but I encourage you to do it. And there are 4 ways. So when I think of better in search, I think Google. When I think of faster, I like lots of cheeseburgers. McDonald's aren't the best, but boy, they're fast, and I eat there because of that sometimes. Walmart has good value. And IBM used to be safer. Now this has changed a little bit in current times. In fact, we're going to replace in the new version of this that we will also have in the book, we're going to use LAN, the safest airline in Latin America. And then we're going to explain what that is because a lot of people in North America don't know what LAN is. So you'll get a little free advertising for your national airline. So think LAN or Volvo perhaps. Anybody else think of a brand that you buy because it provides you a sense of security that you'll be safe? No? Okay. Now this, my friends, is a beaver with a buzzsaw. Most of you probably know that what beavers do, the boy beaver goes out and chews down trees with his teeth and builds a little home on the water that you swim underneath so that he can attract a lady beaver to be his bride, and they make little baby beavers. And because the house is out on the water, things like mountain lions and cougars and foxes and wolves can't get at the kids. This guy says, I want the Taj Mahal of beaver homes, right? So I've got the buzzsaw. I'm going to build something with multiple rooms. I'm going to build a home so beautiful that I'm going to get the fairest lady beaver in the land. And the poor other beavers are going, damn. They're chewing like mad, but there's no way they're going to be able to build as good a house if he's got the buzzsaw and they're using their teeth. That's new game. So think about, when I think about market creation, think about the iPad. How many of you had a tablet before there was an iPad? How many of you have a tablet now? How many of you have an iPad tablet? How many of you have something else? A few. But you see what's happened. They took a category that was looking to become a category, and they really did it right. Smartphone, the exact opposite. I could go into great detail about how they disrupted that market in 2007. People were laughing at Steve Jobs. They said, here's where he's going to get his comeuppance. He may be able to do, these cute little computers and iPods against Nokia and Samsung and Ericsson and Motorola. Come on. He's got fierce competitors out there. He doesn't know jack about this stuff. And they launched, and they blew the competition away. They changed the way that we think about smartphones. And what many of you may not know is that the thing that was most delightful for those of us who bought it, who use our phone for business purposes, like to talk on the phone, if you live in a place like I do in Silicon Valley, where in the course of a 45-minute phone call, you can have 17 dropped calls, 17 dropped calls in 45 minutes. If you do the math, that's kind of hard to have a business conversation when you're, what? So I got the iPhone the first day it was on the market. I did that 45-minute drive, and I had one drop call. One. And I could hear the people who were up at the whiteboard, talking away from the place that had the speakerphone on the table as if I was in the room. What I was raving about was not the idea that I could take pictures and music videos and all that. I have lots of them. But the real delight was that I could use a wireless phone for business. And a lot of my friends bought based on what I told them about the drop calls. Ironically, it got so popular. Oh, by the way, they achieved it because Steve Jobs made AT&T create a different wireless network for the iPhone alone. He said, we'll give you an exclusive, but we have to have a network that's reliable. And sadly, it's gotten so popular that these days, the drop calls are almost as bad as they used to be back in 2007 with the other stuff. So, oh well. This is something that is taught in Blue Ocean Strategy. It's a great way to think about it. So if we go back to the Amazon example, they eliminated inventory, they eliminated salespeople and real estate and all that. They reduced shopping time. One of you brought up yes, and that was really important. They raised the number of titles that you could look through, the assortment, and they created this little genie that goes, hey, Tom, if you like that book, here are 3 more that you might like. Or, hey, Tom, you like that DVD? Here are some more that you might like. And I love that little creature. And I love Amazon because of that little creature, almost as much as I love some of the partnerships that I have with real people. Okay, so we're not going to do this tonight, but what you would do is you'd sit down with your own product and you'd say, if we were going to try to really create a blue ocean with this thing, what would we do to eliminate, reduce, raise, and create, okay? So, and we're not going to do this exercise either in the interest of getting you home at a reasonable hour. I think the key thing here is you're going to have to play both games in the course of a career, in the course of a company. Products, go through a life cycle and competition comes in. The key thing is find a way that you're not only playing this game. There are companies who do mostly this, and you can become profitable. It's just a hard life being the Energizer Bunny all the time. And I think the joy that can come from creating a product where none existed, like the flying car or like the iPhone or like the iPad or whatever, there's thrill in that. That makes the employees really excited to be part of a company that does those things, makes customers excited that they're your customers, makes the investors very excited. If you looked at Apple's market cap over the time of its innovation, it's been richly rewarded by investors for delighting customers. So we encourage you to buy the book. And if you can't buy the book, I'll send you we're going to send you, anybody who wants it, not just the PDF, we'll send you the PowerPoints as well as PDF, so you can change it around if you need to. But please don't put your name on it and say that it's our stuff, okay? Leave us as authors and you can use it however you want. In terms of going global, the first question is, do we do it now or do we wait? And these are a set of questions that you'd ask yourself. And if we had time for this exercise, which we don't, you're either going to go because Chile is not a large enough market and you're going to go because there are more customers are somewhere else, or not. Or you might not know, right? In Israel, it's almost always yes here. It may be that you have large global companies, the way that Microsoft did, who said to Microsoft, the HPs of the world and the Johnson & Johnsons, you're not global enough. We can't rely on you to serve us around the world until you become more global. And you have more people on the ground where we have our people on the ground. Some companies have leaders that just aspire to be global companies. Applied Materials is a really good example of that. Andersen Consulting is another. Oracle is another. Microsoft is another. They just wanted to be global companies. And they would make investments that other people would think were pretty stupid that turned out to be very wise. If you have co-founders or leaders in the company that come from different countries, that really ups your odds of being successful. So please, don't start a company with all Chileans or all Americans or all whatever. Start a company that has hopefully members of at least 3 countries in it, in its founding team. If you've got 4 people, 3 countries, at least 2 countries. If you do, your odds of being a successful global company go way up. Sometimes you go global because you can get cheaper labor in another country or cheaper resources and so on. Sometimes you do it so that you're number 1 in the market before your competitors get there. Microsoft did that in the word processing in the spreadsheet market, went to Europe before Lotus and WordStar did and dominated those markets. You may do it because you're in the kind of business where the more you make, the lower the cost gets. Most of you are probably not in that kind of business. That's something like semiconductors would be an example. Or mining. We just came from the North. Boy, mining is a place we're going global, partly because you got to find the stuff where it's in the ground, and then the more you mine, the better you get, the smarter you get, the lower the cost, and so on. And you might want to do it just because putting all your eggs in one country market can be a problem. So, do you want to go global now or wait? I would encourage you to go global soon. You have to pick where. And this framework, which was developed by a colleague of mine from Harvard Business School, Pankaj Jamat, says there are different kinds of distance: cultural, administrative, geographic, and economic. So if you were here in Santiago and you're saying, well, we could go to Peru and Bolivia and Brazil, we could go to North America, we could go to France, we could go to Spain, we could go to China, we could go to Singapore, we could go to Vietnam. The cage model on those different countries would be different, and it really helps you to think about where you're more likely to have an easier go. And so I encourage you to read the article and use the framework to help decide where you're going to go. This is a framework that Elena Romfeld and I developed back in 1997 called Circles of Influence. So let's imagine you've picked the countries and you want a way to think about how to understand how to get resources in this new country that you're going into. Who are the players? These are people who have access to the resources that you need to grow the business. What are the stakes that we need? We'll go into that in detail in just a minute. What are they betting on you, and what's the code? Here in Santiago, there's a different way to earn trust with business people. It's different from San Francisco. San Francisco is different from San Jose or New York or Dallas. You go to Peking and Shanghai and Hong Kong, it's completely different. So you have to think not about a country cultural difference, but you have to think about the city where you're going to be doing the innovating. And you have to learn the local code. We'll talk about that in a minute. I always feel, here I am in Santiago, first time in Latin America, and I feel like this little puppy. Hi, let's go global. And meanwhile, my wife and I both love cats, and so this is sort of the classic, the cat couch potato, you know, with the beer kind of going, come on, who is this guy? He doesn't speak the language, he doesn't know our laws, or our ecosystem works, or how the government works, or the education system, or our religion. Well, actually, I was born Catholic and went to Catholic school for 11 years, so for those of you who suffered a similar fate, we may have something in common. I'm also a Buddhist, for those of you who are into that sort of thing. I don't understand the ethical practices here, and they're going to be different from what they are in Silicon Valley, or in China, or in Vietnam, or in Singapore, and I know enough about the difference in ethics in those places to know that we have to learn. And I don't know who the players are in the circles of influence, and I don't know the code. So we're not going to do the exercise, but you'd want to think about the answers to these questions. You step off the plane, and sometimes the players look really weird, you know, kind of like these creatures don't look like anything that I'm familiar with. Trust me, you look just as weird to them. So you got to take a deep breath and say, we're all human beings, unless you're on Mars or something. Let's assume we're still on planet Earth. We have some fundamental things in common. Let's figure out, let's be curious about what makes them so remarkably different from me. And if I'm curious and respectful, I'll earn trust. And that's really what it's all about. You have to be very clear about who you're going to ask for what. I have lots of entrepreneurs who say, I want to get venture capital from Kleiner Perkins because they're the coolest, you know, venture capital firm on Sand Hill Road. And they don't really think about the fact that Kleiner's not investing seriously in the category that they've got, that they're doing their work. Or they say, I like the people at Moore David Ventures, and I'm in Singapore, and I want them, but Moore David doesn't invest outside the United States. And it goes on and on. I want John Doerr because he's famous. Well, John Doerr is not interested in the product category you're in. You need to get down to the level of the person in the firm who cares about your category as much as you do, so that he or she can actually provide wisdom, contacts, healthy, interesting guidance in addition to the money. So think about what you're asking, who you're asking for what. The keys are symbolic of keys to relationships that would be locked doors otherwise. Property lease is kind of interesting. A lot of entrepreneurs, when they go global, ask their customers or their partners if they can just have some space, right? So you're not renting an office in Shanghai, which is very expensive. You're just, it's sort of like couch surfing during the day. And I would encourage you, if you've been too proud to couch surf for office space, try it. It works. And then I don't want you to go to this extreme. This guy's ready for anything. What you need to do is, when you land, be prepared to be appropriately dressed and behave appropriately in the place that you are. And I did ask questions about what I should wear before coming. And I was serious about it because I didn't want to be too formal or too casual. I hope I did okay. I could have worn a Mickey Mouse tie, or I could have worn a Stanford tie, and I figured the Stanford tie is just too damn arrogant. And I wore the Mickey Mouse tie yesterday because I was meeting government people, and they thought it would be, you know, they'd have ties, so anyway. And I love ties, I really do, but in Silicon Valley, I have to take them off to go to a number of the places that I work because they go, Tom, come on, we don't wear ties here in Silicon Valley. Okay, we're going quickly to the end here. So you got to get the right people on the bus. This we thank Jim Collins for. If you haven't read Good to Great, please do. He's amazing. And you can go to jimcollins.com and hear him and see him. And he, I think, is one of the most profound and gifted authors of our age. And I was lucky enough to have an office 3 doors down from him at Stanford when we were both teaching at the GSB. The guy's amazing. So I encourage you, if you haven't read his work, to read not only Good to Great, but Built to Last and How the Mighty Fall. And it's something great. It's Great by Choice or something. I'm reading it now and I forget the title. Anybody remember? It's his newest book? Anyway, get the right people on the bus. You've got to be an evangelist. If you're shy, you better have a co-founder who likes being with people. Don't have, 4 geeks who kind of, they don't know how to ask people out on a date and they don't really like crowds more than 4 or 5 people. You've got to have somebody who loves being with people, right? And then that person not only has to love being with people, has to be trustworthy enough that people will join and stay, because that vision that evangelist is able to articulate is so compelling that people say, I'm going to bet my next 3 years on this thing. I'm going to work for less than I can make somewhere else. and I hope the stock turns out, but I'm here for the ride because of this person. Steve Jobs was one of those. And Steve Jobs, I had the privilege to meet a number of times in person, and I taught his wife first-year marketing at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. That's probably my biggest brag, that Laureen was one of my marketing students. And her getting married to him had nothing to do with the fact that she was my marketing student. She was brilliant and articulate and smart and cool, and he knew a good thing when he saw her. Okay. Different roles. We won't go into this in detail. I'll just point out that producer usually means a person who can sell or bring in funding if you need to. The innovator often is younger, and so you need to trust the young and not just say, well, look, I've been in the business longer, listen to me. To say, no, what do you have to say? The difference between a coder and a geek is that the geek is technical but well-dressed and likes to be with people. The coder says, please, I want to be alone. I want to wear my T-shirts. I want to eat pizza in private. Let him code. But take the geek with you when you're out with customers, because the geek likes being with customers, and the geek is probably... So the classic geek story is, I was with MySpace. One of my best students was working for them. This is in the heyday before Facebook basically blew them out of the water. And we were going to lunch in the cafeteria, and they looked like there were no technical people. And I started to talk to people, and I'm an engineer, I'm a computer scientist, and they're dressed like, we were in Beverly Hills. But I sort of said, what? And they're going, well, Tom, this is Beverly Hills. I mean, yes, we're computer scientists. I went back to Silicon Valley and went, this is so different. I mean, in Silicon Valley, none of the people that I know that are technical were dressing like that. So another example of how things change when you go from one place to another. I'm not going to go into this. We don't have time. Last gear, reality test. Customers are going to tell you things that just aren't true. Not because they're trying to deceive you, but if it's a really innovative product or service, they just don't know. That's why listening with your eyes is so important, because sometimes there are things that they wouldn't even think to mention that you can see are blindingly obvious to you but are not obvious to them, which will give you an idea of how to create something that will really cure their pain. But here's a framework that I created when I left the Harvard Business School in 1989 and came to Stanford to teach. I wanted to use case method, and the thing that really bothered me about case method was we'd have all this discussion about what we were going to do and what the analysis was, and nobody ever said, well, wait a minute, what could go wrong? And I had worked enough in business and with startups to know that a lot can go wrong. So this very simple exercise is to identify the major risks to this new product that you're launching into the market. They are market risk. Are there enough customers? Will they pay? There's product technology risk. Will this thing do what we think it will do? Will the flying car fly? Will the next generation baby Harley carriage, will it actually protect the baby in the way that you promised? The next is team risk. Have you got the people on board that you need to grow this to be a global business? If not, what talent do you need to add? Then there's intellectual property risk. Think about it. How are we going to protect this innovation, especially if we go global, where countries have different ideas about IP? Then there's government and environment risk. Depending on the country that you go into, there are going to be issues. If you go to Vietnam, there's a chance the government may decide to just say, poof, we're nationalizing you. If you go to China, there's a very good chance that the government will make you do things that, as you work with your local partners there, that are not necessarily in your best interest, and so it goes. So that's it. That's gear up. There are 9 gears. If you've ever ridden a racing bike, you know that you've got to be able to sort of tweak the gears and grease the gears and really think about having them work together, because if you're putting a new product out that will create a new market or disrupt an existing market, you need all of these gears working well. And a great entrepreneur knows how to really work the gears. And with that, I thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. And I don't know how to, so, I could do something cheesy like, if you give me your business card, we'll send you the deck. I will if you do, but you don't have to do that. Is there some way do you know how to reach all of them? Okay.
Everyone in the database.
Outstanding. So have fun.
Questions?
Wait, time out. People who need to go, because I thought that I had more time than I had and we ran a little later. If you need to go, please feel free. and I'll hang out for those of you who want to hang out a little while.
And the guys that want to stay.
Yeah, please, please. But thank you all. Those of you who have other
Preguntas?
commitments, I really appreciate the fact that you stayed late tonight. Go ahead.
My first question is about creativity, because
Your question is about
creativity,
creativity?
yeah, because innovators and entrepreneurs need
Let's wait till the dust settles here, because even though I spent a lot of money on this technology, it's not always easy to hear you when there's noise going on. Okay.
how can we improve our creativity? Because innovators and entrepreneurs to build a product or a new service and make it have a big impact in the world,
Yes.
they need a lot of creativity. So
Right.
they might be some techniques or tips that can improve.
Okay, that's a fair question. The question is basically, how can we augment or improve our creativity? Because creativity is important for innovation. I would go back and I would say, Cristobal knows how to do something that we'll call design thinking, or we can call it user-centered design, that I think is the first thing that I would do. It's a skill I would learn. I know how to do it. But if you don't know how, it's being able to go and observe customers, to be curious and not to have them feeling weird that they've got some stranger with them. Because if you're curious and respectful and watchful, you'll see things. And then you can ask thoughtful questions. And they'll give you answers that you would never have thought of. And that's where the ideas come from. Some people, like Steve Jobs, don't need to do that. There are people who are product visionaries who just can anticipate what the market wants. And that's why he consistently delighted us. But we know the number of people on Earth who have that sort of innate skill is less than 1% of the population. So unless you happen to have the gene, the Steve Jobs gene, then this empathic design, this design thinking is the way to go. And I think the other thing is to follow other people who are very creative around. If they're going to go out with customers, go and watch them. There's no better way to get good than to hang out with someone who's great. So that's what I do. And I'd be fearless, because you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And that's hard to do here in Santiago, and people will make fun of you, and they'll think you're stupid, and da-da-da-da-da. But if you're really going to be creative, you're going to fail a lot. And you have to learn to love failing. I talk about off the high dive and loving the belly flop. You're trying to do a really complicated dive, and belly flops hurt. But if you can't learn to love the belly flop, you're not going to get creative. Okay.
Hello. First, I would like to congratulate you for an outstanding presentation. Thank you very much.
I'm yours. Compliments will get you everywhere. Go ahead.
My question is, being from Chile, it's a country not that well known, and if we have a biotech idea, we will look like the little dog in disguise when we want to go global. So, instead of going global, when do we need to make the decision if our enterprise could be sold to a bigger enterprise in terms of reaching that global market?
Okay, so you're thinking if we're here and we don't know about how to go global and we're small, might we get acquired in order to let them do the going global for us? It's a great question. So I have to be careful about how I say this. Premature acquisition is not much fun for either party. So avoid premature acquisition. And if you get the joke, you're also saying, he didn't really say that, did he? Okay. Now, however, you can partner. And that's the thing that's interesting. I used to write about this, I would say managing a portfolio of polygamous partnerships. I'm really having trouble tonight. So managing a portfolio of polygamous partnerships. What that means is if you have multiple partners in business, you're going to learn faster, you're going to have less risk, and then when you make the decision to become somebody's bride, if you will, or groom, when you decide to become acquired, you're making it with better evidence because you've partnered with several different large companies. And it's kind of like dating, you date enough and you sort of realize who you want to marry and who you don't. So I do partnerships with multiple players for as long as possible, and only become acquired when the offer's so good you can't refuse. I mean, there are offers made when it's kind of like, Tom, don't be stupid. I'm going to be a billionaire if I take this thing. If that happens, then get married. But otherwise, take your time.
Hi, Tom. My name is Tomas. And I was wondering, you talked about different types of consumers, like the early adopters. So I was wondering if once you have an innovative idea, you should start doing all your communication towards them, or you should still start communicating your ideas like it was meant from the beginning, or you should focus on them?
So it's a good question. Remember when I said earlier you try to design in parallel the product for the early adopters and the one for the pragmatists? I would not talk just to early adopters, because what happens is, and this has happened to very many companies, you spend a lot of time designing this very elegant thing that's pretty expensive that works beautifully for a very small number of customers. And then, if you then say, okay, now let's go talk to the rest of the market, you've lost a lot of time, and there may be somebody else who's looking at you designing the fancy thing for the early adopters and the visionaries, and they come up with something that the pragmatists will like. They just imitate and they get in ahead of you. So I think it's very important not to lose track of the pragmatists or the early majority when you're working with the early adopters. A good example of a company that lost the market doing this, because he focused on early adopters, was a company called Trilogy, led by Joe Lamont. And they were basically doing customer relationship management software. And Tom Siebel watched them, and Joe Lamont would brag about the fact that their average customer was paying them $10 or $12 million a year. And Tom Siebel was a software guy. You know, he'd worked at Oracle. He went, I don't need 20 companies to pay me $10 or $12 million a year. I want 20,000 or 200,000 companies paying me a smaller amount so that I can own the customer relationship management space. And then later, Tom Siebel lost the battle to Salesforce.com because he did a lot of things that annoyed his customers. But Joe Lamont lost the market. He could have had it. Trilogy was a great company. They had great products, but they focused too long on the visionaries.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Tom. A very simple question, and with all my all respect to you, but where is your iPhone?
Where's my iPhone?
No. What is your iPhone? Okay, where you are a consultant professor, you make speeches, and you teach us from many of these kind of things, okay? You know to innovate, you know to teach that, but what is your iPhone?
Oh, what is there's a product that I've made that
what
is...
What did you create?
Oh, that's fair, that's fair. Well, I think if you go to my Facebook friends, and there are about 3,000 of them, and I have 7,000 alumni. Not all of them are equally enthusiastic, but I happen to be one of the best teachers on earth at the university level. No arrogance intended. I know because I've taught with Michael Porter and the folks at Harvard who really know how to do it, and I've taught with the best people at Stanford and in other places, and so I know what great looks like. And what I can do better than most is not lecture. What I can do is create an interactive experience. If we'd had more time, this would have been a whole lot more delightful. And the people with products would have walked away having made major progress toward taking their product to market. So what I'm really good at, given enough time, and it's not very much, is to take groups of strangers, have them work together on something that the person who's got the product goes, holy shit, in 2-3 hour sessions, working with people who volunteer to help me, I'm way further along than I would have been. And I don't know anybody else who does that as well as me. So that's my iPod. I encourage you guys to come try that sometime. By the way, if you want to have the experience, the second week in August in 2013, we'll run our third Gear Up Boot Camp in Vietnam. So we take 500 students from all over Vietnam who really want to learn how to become entrepreneurs and create great products. Out of that 500, 100 get in. And out of the 100, somewhere between 20 and 40 have ideas for new products. On the first day, anybody with an idea for the new product has 1 minute to pitch to the other 100 to try to attract teammates. Very interesting Darwinian process. When we did it last summer, there were 40 people pitching, and the teams narrowed to 25 by the second day. We then run them through boot camp using Europe, coupled with real entrepreneurs who are from Vietnam, who are from other places, who are inspiring, who have good advice. And at the end of the week, they have 2 rounds of judging with venture investors, and the press is there, and the winners get money, get funded, and then we have a party to end all parties the night that the week is over. If anybody wants to go to Vietnam and you can afford the plane fare, there are a lot of really nice university students in Vietnam who will let you couch surf in their dorm or whatever, and it'll be really fun. So that would be an example of an event that I know will be great. Anything else? Yes?
Hi. Hi, I have a question. I have a startup, and we started researching, looking if there are competitors, and we found some guys in the States that are really making a lot of money with the same idea. I would like to get in touch with them, so we start doing this thing in Chile, but I would like your advice how to contact these people, how would be a good idea to address them.
Where are they?
In
physically?
Charlotte.
Charlotte, North Carolina?
Yep.
Charlotte, North Carolina? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And you're asking a boy who went to Duke what to do if you're going to go to Charlotte?
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, you got to meet some people who are in Charlotte and who can talk like this, but who do it all the time. No, and then what industry is this? What industry are we talking?
Banking.
Okay. So the banking industry is in some disarray, and I'm trying to think, the major bank that's in Charlotte, there's a big one that's headquartered there. The U.S. Bank, there is, come on. You're looking at me like I have horns. Can anybody remember? There is, at any rate, Charlotte is an amazing town in North Carolina, but having gone to school in North Carolina, your accent's not going to get over any better than mine did. So you do have to find people who are local, who have grown up in North Carolina and have some of them on your team. Now, then you say, well, how do I do that? I would look to see where did you go to school?
Católicas.
Okay, see if anybody from North Carolina ever came to Católica, to grad school or whatever else. Believe me, if they did, and you reach out and say, you're living in Charlotte, and it could be that they grew up here in Santiago, but they somehow wound up in Charlotte. Find someone who is from Charlotte, or who's from North Carolina. It doesn't have to be Charlotte. So UNC, NC State, Duke, but be careful, because find out what university the people went to that are in the startup, because the rivalries in the ACC for basketball are very fierce. And so if these people are all from NC State and you find a person who's Duke Blue Devil, no, don't do that. Okay, so find out their university pedigree. Find someone who speaks their language. Are they all male? Are they all male, men? Okay, find a woman. I'm serious. If they're all men, find a woman who is either from North Carolina or who knows how to speak with people in North Carolina because she's lived there a while. And a smart woman will get you much farther than the smartest guy. This should be obvious to all of you, but if you're dealing with males and you're not sort of already in their in club, finding a woman who they will open up to is much easier than finding a guy who they will. Time to go? Time to go.
Tom,
Last question, okay.
I got the pleasure to be the last question, I think. First, thank you for all the knowledge, but all this stuff is about the process, about developing the idea. I want to ask for one advice for the guys that are going through the first entrepreneurship or that want to be an entrepreneur.
I didn't understand what you said. Could somebody
Which would be your advice to people that are going through the first project?
Their first
Startup.
Yeah, the first startup.
their first project. So all of the entrepreneurs I know say, unless you've got an idea that you're willing to die for, that you really love and you're just crazy about, you're not ready to be an entrepreneur yet, okay? So you just don't start a company because you think it's fashionable to start a company. That's the first piece of it. The second is, if you do have something you're crazy about, find other people who are equally crazy. If you can't find at least 3 or 4 co-founders who are really committed to what you're doing, you don't have an idea that's worth its salt. Okay? So if you, and it could be that you don't have the idea, but go ask a bunch of people who you'd like to work with. Hey, have you got an idea for a product? What is it? And in a very short time, you're going to figure out whether you have a set of 4 or 5 people you really trust who are crazy about doing something, changing the world by coming up with a product, and then go out, take 30 days, and go out and hang out with customers and find out whether the customers care or not. It's not like you have to sacrifice, a year of your life figuring out if this thing's going to work or not. Find a team, get out for a month, and you'll know whether that product is worth launching and whether that company's worth starting. And if it's not, you can go work for a really good company that you admire, but work for a company whose product you love. I have so many of my alumni who wound up, in investment banking or strategy consulting because they had to pay off their debt or because they thought it was cool. And the lucky ones got out after 2 or 3 years. The sad ones have now a lifestyle that they have to have that sort of income and they can't leave the business and they don't want to do it anymore. When you're young and single and, there's no better time to be an entrepreneur if you can figure out what you're crazy about than when you're young and single. It gets harder each year after that. I think. Those of you who have had a few miles on you, do you agree? Is it sort of easier to start when you're young? I think. And for those of us who aren't as young as, how old are you? Oh, what a time. By the way, you're kind of old. Bill Gates was 19 and Steve Jobs was, so you're an old man. You better get going here. But I don't want any of you to feel like entrepreneurship is a game for the young. The thing that's really cool about being an entrepreneur is you can keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And I think of people that I know that are in their 70s that love this business, this being an entrepreneur or working with them. I certainly do. And so some people love it and some people don't. You won't know that you love it or not until you try it, but don't try it until you've got a product you're crazy about and a team that you trust. We done? Oh, sorry, sir. Yeah.
Thank you for this wonderful talk. I enjoyed almost all of that. But you have great ideas, rich metaphors, nice images, but I have a really big problem with the initial one. Because you choose the mechanistic wheels,
okay.
to illustrate gear up. And
Can we, let's go back. Let's make sure I understand
yes.
what you're. You mean just the the gear system?
No, I am going for the book because of the question. You know.
Let me make sure. I want to make sure I know which one you're. It may be the gears, right? If
Yeah,
that's what
the gears.
This guy?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, good. Tell me what. Tell me about it.
The question is, why did you choose this? Because it's such a poor model. It's too perfect. The wheels fit so right. It's not realistic. And there is no passion in it. There is no emotion. Why did you choose that?
I didn't. Lena and Jonas did. and I've never ridden a 10-speed bike, and I don't even know how gears work, guys. So it's interesting because they both use 10-speed bikes, and they really like it because they think it works for them. But for those of us who are not mechanical, gears are maybe not a good idea.
Of course, I am an engineer. It is a simple model, explain it. But if you use the biology paradigm, it really doesn't fit. Because real life, it isn't like that.
That's true. We'll have to think about whether we change the images. The thing, no. But the thing about it is, have you read Rainforest? Rainforest? And there are a couple of other things that use in biology and ecosystems. And frankly, some of those things have been done well enough that I'm not quite sure that we need another book using biology as a metaphor. I don't know how I do it and delight with it or separate myself from the pack.
I will pick another one for you.
Go ahead. No, you pick another besides biology, or you'll.
Another image.
Okay.
More biology oriented.
Okay. Well, I would love to have it, and if it's something that I understand, we'll give it to Lena and Jonas. And actually, the guy that we have to persuade most is not Lena or Jonas; it's the artist. The artist is just so difficult to deal with. It's like I had some things that I wanted done. It's like, no. But thank you, because it is true. Lots of people don't understand mechanical engineering or gears. It's like, what is this? Right? We could have done a lot of other things. So I really take your kind words to heart. And I'd love a better metaphor. By the way, we're going to change this every year anyway. So it could just be the 2013 edition. It uses gears, and we use a bubble bath or salamanders or whatever it is next year. I'm serious. This thing is not. It's never going to get stale. We don't believe you should have books that rot on the shelf. They ought to be mostly digital, and they ought to change, as you all will change. With that, let's go have some dinner or drink some wine or whatever it is. This has been fun.
Thank you again, Tom. Amazing. You need to give the book to the best.
Whoa.
So wait.
The book, without question.
Wait.
No, you know what? I have to give two books. I have to give two books. Because your question about why the gears is a great question, but the person who asked what my delight was, where's the guy who said what's my you guys, you both get a book. Because I had no idea what I was going to say when you said, what's your delight? But what I came up with is what I know to be true. In other words, this interactive learning thing.
So Tom is giving two books. So amazing.
Okay, if I can get these gears to work so that the lock opens.
Bueno, aprovechamos de agradecer mientras abre la maleta y el candado. Aprovechamos de agradecer a todos por venir hoy día. Okay.
Thank you both. Thanks. Fantastic.
Agradecemos a todos, a Tom, a ustedes, a nuestros.
Great question. Okay. Oh, were you trying to get? You want to get? Actually, do you all mind having
Agradecemos a nuestros socios estratégicos Sura, a El Mercurio, a Classroom TV, que está digitalizando toda esta clase, a todos ustedes por venir y, bueno, seguimos en contacto y arriba fuerte el emprendimiento local y global. Y tenemos un cóctel afuera. Chao.